Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. Welcome to the Singapore Management University to this very special SMU Presidential Distinguished Lecture, which is held in conjunction with the Memorandum of Understanding signing ceremony between SMU and the Shanghai Jiao Tong University. And of course, a very warm welcome to the delegation from the Shanghai Jiao Tong University, led by Professor Zhang Jie, President of Shanghai Jiao Tong University. 非常欢迎上海交通大学校长张杰院士和你们的同僚，欢迎你们来到新加坡管理大学。The MOU between SMU and Shanghai Jiao Tong University is to jointly establish a test bed in Shanghai in city management. We are indeed fortunate to be able to invite Professor Tong to speak to us about the responsibilities of Chinese university in conjunction with this MOU signing. Before we begin the signing ceremony and the lecture, I would now like to invite Professor De Meyer to introduce Professor Chang and to elaborate more on the MOU which SMU will be signing with Shanghai Jiao Tong University today. Professor De Meyer, please.
Professor Zhang Jie, President of Shanghai Jiao Tong University, Professor Zhou Guaning, as a former colleague from NTU and President Emeritus of NTU, distinguished guests, colleagues, students and members of the SMU community, good afternoon. Some of you may recall that last year we had here at SMU in the Presidential Distinguished Lecture Series, Professor Dan Bresnitz from the Georgia Institute of Technology in the United States, who spoke at that moment about government innovation, globalization and economic growth in China. And we all know, I mean, we read it almost every day in the press, that China has indeed been transformed dramatically by a series of sweeping changes, politically, economically, and socially, that were started and ushered in by its late leader, Deng Xiaoping, some 3 decades ago. I was sharing with Professor Zhang that my first time that I went to China was in 1985 when I went to Shanghai, and I was there again recently. I mean, I go there quite regularly, and the transformation that one has seen, of course, is dramatic. When I go back to Deng Xiaoping, his self-described approach of crossing a river by feeling the stones in the country's reform and opening policy has, as we all know, resulted in an unprecedented growth for China since 1979. Today, China boasts the world's second largest economy. I almost said the largest economy, but that's only a few months or a few years before I can say that. It holds the world's largest foreign exchange reserves, has a per capita income which surpasses the World Bank's definition of a middle-income nation of US $4,000 by more than 25%. It possesses increasingly sophisticated infrastructures and more high-end and innovative industries, and as well embraces a burgeoning urban middle class that is better educated and more upwardly mobile among its nearly 1.4 billion population. It is against this backdrop of a very successful development that I'm delighted to have invited here today Professor Zhang Jie, President of Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and I'm not only delighted to have invited him, but I'm honored that he has accepted our invitation because he is the president of one of China's foremost universities. And I'm very happy that he will share his insights into the strategic vision of China's thriving university education sector. As many of you know, because you're regulars here at SMU, speakers invited to SMU for the Presidential Distinguished Lecture Series, or PDLS in short, are internationally renowned scholars, outstanding business leaders, or influential policymakers who have excelled in their respective areas of expertise. Its purpose is to stimulate rigorous intellectual discussions among SMU students, faculty and staff, as well as our supporters, and that about matters of interest and issues of significance. And I'm very happy that Professor Zhang Jie is the 12th speaker to grace the PDLS since its inception in 2005, by my predecessor, Professor Hunter, who I'm also seeing here in the room, and welcome here today. I understand that being the 12th speaker is actually a good number, both in Western and Eastern tradition. So you're double lucky here today. When we look at the tertiary education sector of China today in the context of the sheer size of the country's population, the statistics are simply staggering. More than 60% of high school graduates in China now attend a university, compared to only 20% in the 1980s. And The Economist, the English publication, highlighted in March 2011 that the number of students enrolled in degree programs in China had risen from 1 million in 1997 to 5 million in 2010. 5 million is an important number here in Singapore because that's about the current population of Singapore. So the number of people in university education in China is as big as Singapore. Of course, we know that it's going to rise to 6.9 million, either in the universities in China or here in Singapore. I don't know anymore very well what. But the number of higher education institutions, be it universities and colleges combined, is more than 2,200 hitherto in China. Such an expansion in capacity is of an unprecedented scale, and China has managed to build the largest higher education sector in the world in merely a decade. How China navigates the various challenges and continues to grow and prosper will not only shape the country's future, but will also have far-reaching impact on the wider region. For top Chinese universities like Shanghai Jiao Tong University, how they ride the upswing in the momentum of China's growth will determine the extent to which they can help address the many developmental issues associated with an increasingly demanding and heterogeneous society. Additionally, how they leverage on the opportunities arising from the country's growing clout on the international stage to strengthen their engagement and interplay with the premier research universities of the world will decide if China can realize its vision of creating its own Ivy League. Now, before I invite Professor Zhang Jie to the podium to share his views on this topic of how the educational sector in China will actually influence the whole world, I'm pleased to announce that our School of Information Systems, with our Dean Stephen Miller here, will be entering into a collaboration with Shanghai Jiao Tong's School of Electronics, Information and Electrical Engineering today to undertake a testbed project utilizing the research and the development capabilities of both universities to improve patient care, patient service delivery, and health outcomes for approximately 620,000 residents in the Changning district of Shanghai. SMU, through our ICT lab, and Shanghai Jiao Tong University will jointly apply our respective know-how in an exploratory yet synergistic fashion towards improving patient care services for 1,000 chronically ill patients living in that district. Ladies and gentlemen, it's hence a great pleasure for me to now witnessing, together with my counterpart, President Zhang, the signing of this MOU between Shanghai Jiao Tong University and SMU. And thank you for your attention in being here.
We will now proceed with the MOU signing ceremony. It gives me great pleasure to invite Professor Mao Jianfa, Dean of the School of Electronics, Information and Electrical Engineering, representing Shanghai Jiao Tong University, Professor Stephen Miller, Vice Provost of Research and Dean of the School of Information Systems, representing SMU to sign the MOU. I would also like to invite Professor Zhang Jie up on stage to witness the signing ceremony with Professor Arnold de Meyer. Okay, Professor Mao and Professor Miller, when you're ready. Professor Arnold de Meyer and Professor Zhang Jie will now sign on the MOU as witnesses. Thank you, President. May I both invite you to proceed to exchange the signed documents at that photo spot. SMU would like to present a gift to Professor Zhang Jie to commemorate this special occasion. 这双金块象征着我们新加坡管理大学和上海交通大学在未来一起开创紧密无间的合作，共创辉煌。A pair of golden chopsticks symbolizing a harmonious working relationship between the two institutions and chartering new heights of excellence together. Professor Zhang Jie will now present a token of appreciation to SMU. And may I like to invite Professor Zhang to say a few words? Professor Zhang, can you use the microphone? Yeah.
Well, this is the ancient Chinese art of war, 孙子兵法. Hopefully you can read it.
My best.
There's an English version.
It's an English version. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zhang Jie. I'd like to thank you, Professor De Meyer and Stephen Miller. You may take to your seats right now. I'd like to invite Professor Zhang Jie to take to this podium to share with us your views on the responsibilities of Chinese universities today. Professor Zhang Jie, please.
Dear President De Meyer and dear Professor Xu, it is really my great honor to deliver this speech in front of all the experts on management. Some of you may expect me to give a speech on economy, but the economy is not my major. So if you have later on, if you have any questions related to economy, you can ask my colleague, Zhou Lin, who is the expert on economy. So actually, I would like to share the dream of our university. So the title of my talk is The Path Towards the World Class. So I will start to talk about the responsibilities of Chinese universities in the current economic circumstances. Before I enter this topic, I would like to bring you back to China 35 years ago. 35 years ago, when China just came out from the Cultural Revolution, the economics by that time was on the edge of collapse. All the Chinese people want to develop our own country. But by that time, we didn't have anything for development. We didn't have capital. We didn't have enough natural resources. We didn't have enough knowledge. The only thing we have is the large population. 1.2 billion hungry Chinese people. So actually, that's the only advantage we can rely on to develop our own economy. So actually, as one of the Nobel Prize laureates correctly pointed out, so the most critical advantage of China actually is its people. The cheap labor, is the only driving force in our last 35 years for our economic development. Because we have cheap labor, so therefore any kind of technology, if it can be produced in China, it will earn money. So therefore that attract a lot of foreign capitals to do business in China, which bring the Chinese economy to a little bit richer sort of circumstances. And later on, we develop the more sort of industrialized regions, special regions in the southern part of China. And also, we started to build towns and urban. So urbanization also gave another driving force to Chinese economy. And then you can see, well, that's what happened in the last 35 years. So that leads a very rapid development of Chinese economy. However, this development has a very huge cost as well. Although you can see here, oh, the screen here is different from there. Well, in terms of urban population of China, actually you can see it's rapidly increased to over 50%. And also the agriculture industrial service value added in China, which is a temporal development in last 35 years. And you can see now the main part of the economy comes from the service and also industrial added value, whereas the main sort of the main force from the agriculture now it's become less than 10%. And the poverty count ratio was dropped dramatically, which is the major achievement in last 35 years. However, as I said, this rapid development is based on very huge cost. So now we have a serious problem with the energy shortage, with the aging population. So actually, before we realized anything, the aged society suddenly come to China. Because this arrival of aged society is come together with the single child policy, which implemented 30 years ago. So on the one hand, aged population increased dramatically. On the other hand, the working population reduced dramatically, which caused a serious problem to China. And of course, we also have the problem with the pollution and also public health. So in last 10 years, China is trying very, very hard to find a way to keep sustainable development. Of course, by this time, we have some factors for development, but it's not enough, not big enough to support the future development. And once again, the only advantage of China we have to rely on is the population. But this time, hopefully, we can upgrade our cheap labor advantage into educated human resources by increase greatly the size of the universities and also provide the higher education to the most of the young Chinese people, which is the only hope for this country. So in order to state this necessary more clearly, let's make a comparison of what American did. So when you look at the economic development of America, so you can relatively divide this development into two phases. So the first phase is from the time just after the Civil War in 1865 to Second World War. And the second period is from the Second World War to now. So in the first period, the American economy performs just like what Chinese economy performed in the last 35 years. And also is similar to the rest of the economies in the world. Whereas in the second phase of American economy, performed very differently. So it is indicated by 5 sort of different steps happened in 60s, 70s, 80s, and the 90s. So at the time in 50s, and also in 60s, 70s, different technological revolution happened in US, which lead the great increase of the economic performance. All of those 5 technological revolution was related to the innovation. And all of those 5 technological revolutions came out from the university. So therefore, that's actually let us realize the only hope for the transition in China successful is to make the world, to make the university as more innovative, and to make the university as the world-class university, to lift the economy of this country to be more innovative. So then we realized actually the university, when it was born, it is because of the demand of the society. And then nowadays, the society requires the university provide the innovation capacity. So China, in transition from the factor-driven to innovation-driven, relies on a successful transition of the driving force. So university should take this responsibility to function as the innovation engine for the economic and the social transition. So now I would like to share with you what a typical Chinese university did for this transition. So after 35 years of high-speed economic growth, Chinese government started to invest a lot into R&D and also into the university R&D. Because in 1955, the Chinese university decided, well, the central government decided to follow Russian model. So after 1955, the Chinese universities was defined only to provide education, whereas all the research are supposed to be conducted in Chinese academic sciences. So only in recent 35 years, the Chinese universities started to regain the capacity to do the research. So therefore, the government also invests a lot of money into the R&D in university. And starting from last year, the central government also decided to expand the spending on education to 4% of the total GDP, which give us a lot of opportunities for further development. When you compare the R&D spending for the selected countries in the 2000 to 2015, you can see the Chinese tendency actually is follow behind the American tendency, actually increased very rapidly. And the number of undergraduate students, as the President Demir said, actually also increased very rapidly. And nowadays, the total undergraduate students in China actually is equivalent to the total number of the rest of the world, which provided enough human power, human resources for the sustainable development in the future. And that's the proportion of postgraduate students in Chinese higher education also increased fairly rapidly. So we'll take Shanghai Jiao University as an example for this transition. In 2007, we started our strategic planning for next 10 years. So during that study, we set up the vision for the future. So for the future, SGTU should be the best university in China in 2020. Actually, because by that time, China is one of the most innovative countries. So therefore, Shanghai Jiao University set up its goal as a world-class university by that time. And our mission is to build enough innovative capacity for the country. So therefore, we decided to build this Trinity system towards excellence. So excellence in talent development, and also excellence in innovative capacity, excellence in university culture, which is also very important for the country. The unique advantage of this university is, on the one hand, this university is one of the two oldest universities in China. But on the other hand, this university is also the youngest university in China, because in 1956, after the major part of this university moved to Xi'an, so actually nothing left in Shanghai. So we rebuilt everything. So therefore, this university is also very young. So this combination gives a very unique culture of this university. And also, this university is very good at strategic thinking, and also very good at action. Of course, we have a lot of major challenges. For example, we have to transform this university from an old-fashioned system to a modern, more advanced system. So therefore, we have to do many very deep reforms. One of the major obstacles for the development is the piece rate compensation system, which implied in business in many years. But in 80s to 90s, many universities took that system. But that system, although it can increase the production, but it's also to have many side effects, especially on the core value of the university. So facing the challenges ahead, Chinese universities should set up a system of institutional incentives for innovations. And we have to set up this Trinity system aiming to boost innovation. And we decided to let this university to go through those three major shifts. From the governance point of view, we have to change from the administration leading governance to a more academic governance. And from the management point of view, we have to change from the centralized governance to a decentralized governance. And also from the institutional development, we have to change to personal development. For the whole of the university, we have to change our governance to incentive through the service. For the faculty development, so we developed the faculty development path, which will lead eventually an ideal structure of the future faculty. And in 2007, we planned to attract 800 new faculties from the world-class universities. And also, we have to nurture our own faculty team and select 1/3 from our faculty team to the future faculty team. And we have to upgrade our existing faculty team. And also, we have to build this supporting system. So this plan was set up in 2007. So at the beginning, nobody believed this goal could be realized. Actually, once again, it proves the speed of China actually is much faster than any kind of expectation. So by last year, actually, we reached the goal for 2013. And by 2020, hopefully, we will fulfill our strategic goal to build a world-class faculty team. And for education, for the student education, we also wanted to change from the traditional knowledge transfer model to an environmental for the innovation model. And we tried quite a few pilot programs for undergraduate students and also for graduate education. So after 6 years, we see some effects. For example, you can see the faculty numbers starting to decrease because on the one hand, we sort of increased the newly recruited faculties. On the other hand, we started to select from our own faculty team. And also, there are other changes in the last 6 years. So this figure shows the newly hired faculty team, the development. So actually, it shows a very rapid development. So our own faculty team also get stronger through the competition. So actually, you can see the faculty development for the 973, which is one of the major scientific program in China. The number of chief scientists grows very fast. And the internationalization of students also changed quite a lot because we realized for the future China, actually we need our students to have cultural training with the global vision. And also, because in Shanghai, to find a job is relatively easy. So therefore, previously, the students do not want to have the sort of further study after their university. So in last 6 years, we sort of tried very hard to convince our students. So for the future China, you have to go through the graduate studies to earn the power for the innovation. And that's the proportion of international students at SGTU. At the moment, we have a couple of thousand of international students. So by 2020, the international students will reach 10,000 in SGTU. That's for the PhD education, actually, we also achieved some effects. And we reshaped the university culture for the pursuit of science, which is the core part of the culture of the university. So at the moment, there are still some ongoing major reforms. For example, the restructuring the university governance by enhancing academic autonomy, which is ongoing. And the second part I already talked about, and also enlarging the overheads from the existing revenue system. Because at the moment, we only allow to charge 7% of overhead. So therefore, we invented many new methods to increase this overhead. So nowadays, we already reached 25%. And also advanced strategic planning for the future, and introducing international benchmark, and so on. So I'm very pleased to see the great enhance of the innovative capacity. This capacity represented by the NSF grants. So the increase of this grant capacity is the greatest in China in the last 2 years. And also, that's the annual revenue increase, and also research grants increase. Sorry. Sorry, it seems the computer has a problem with the Chinese. Yeah, because I can't see from my screen. So in terms of the academic impact, this university already ranked at the top 3 for 4 years. Well, national top 3 in 4 years globally. And also in terms of the ESI indicator, so this university has, increased from 6 sort of top 1% disciplines to 15 disciplines. And by 2018, all of our disciplines will be in top 1%. So looking at the predictions, by 2018, this university will be within the 100 world-class universities. And that's from the other ranking. So because I mentioned a lot of numbers, because maybe many numbers does not mean anything to you. So in order to give you a more sort of clear image, I will make a comparison with the other two Singapore universities, because I'm in SMU, so I don't compete with you. So actually you can see that's the net asset. So now, actually before I came here, I thought the increase of Chinese universities should be the fastest. Actually, after I made this calculation, I realized actually the university in this country grows as fast as most of the Chinese universities. And that's the increase of the annual revenue. And that's the research revenue. And that's the faculty numbers. So we are a little bit decreased. And that's the total students. So we have certainly much more students than the other two universities. And that's the graduate students. And that's the ESI included research papers. So we are sort of catching up. But again, that also does not mean anything. That's only quality. So actually, it means, so qualitatively, we sort of increased dramatically, but the quality is still behind of the two other universities. And that's the ES average citation per paper. So we are far behind the other two universities. So that's really the quality. And in terms of the number of highly cited papers, so the other two universities also performed better than us. So looking forward, SGTU in 2020, we set up this goal in 2007. So we set up for the different steps. And now we are in 2013. Hopefully, by end of this year, we will reach the goal for 2015. And looking forward, so that's a major indicators of China from 2000 to 2020, and that's the percentage of Chinese GDP in terms of the world economy. And looking into the future, the dream is still to be realized. So the dream as a leading university, SGTU will play roles as a solid sense of a commitment towards truth and knowledge, and a soaring aspiration for even the dream and the ideals impossible. A torch of passion and belief that will not be extinguished. A deep sense of gratitude, hope, and social responsibilities that sustains throughout historical moments. So yesterday, the president of China talked about the Chinese dream. So the Chinese dream of a great reunification of the Chinese nation is a dream of the whole nation as well as of every individuals, and which is a dream of common prosperity and dignity, sustainable development, great contribution to the world. And I would like to end my lecture by sharing a story with you. Because I spent my research training in Oxford. So every day I go through the small museum, Alice in Wonderland. So when Alice asked the Red Queen, in this special country, why I worked so hard, but I can't move any further. And then the Red Queen told her, in this special country, you have to run twice as hard as you ran before in order to achieve something. So in the past, we worked together with the rest of the world, especially some of the universities in this country is our partner. So I would like to run together with our Singapore partners. Thank you very much.